All right, guys, real quick, want to shoot you a video on what it looks like to back up your website. With you guys controlling your website now fully, I recommend doing a backup on your website once a month. There are resources that you can use to do backups more often, but this is a way that you can do a full backup on your website so that nothing gets missed. And I recommend always keeping one of these on hand so that if something goes wrong in the future, you can always revert back to it. And if you do this regularly, then it's very unlikely that you're going to run into a spot where something crashes and you can't quickly restore. I've gone through a lot of different plugins and a lot of different backup solutions through the years in doing websites, and this is one that has worked absolutely flawlessly for me through the years. And it's actually a little plugin we call Duplicator. In fact, whenever I set up a website, it's the first thing I do is I install Duplicator to create a few what they call snapshots or packages so that if anything goes wrong during the build, I can always go back and not have to start over from scratch. What I'm going to do today is walk you through a backup process, and then I'm going to provide you with the actual backup that I create from this video for you to keep on hand. It's real simple. You go to your website, you go to your WP admin, which is your dashboard here. Once you're here, you'll see Duplicator on the left-hand side, and click on Packages. Right now you have a banner here that I'm not going to mess with. Looks like somebody has installed Simple SSL on here, which is no problem, no big deal. I don't know who did that or when they did that, but it's here for them to look at. So I'm not going to X this out, but typically once they look at it and they can click Don't Show Again if they want to, that won't be here. But when you're here under Duplicators, under Packages, right now you're going to see nothing. Once I build this package, you'll actually see something listed here until it gets deleted off of your website. It's okay if you see 5 or 6 of these, unless your website is running out of space for some reason. If you get a notice from Ionos that you're exceeding your website limit, this is a good place to kind of cull from, because this literally is duplicating your website and making it much, much, much larger every time you run one of these. Again, I would still recommend you running these once a month, but it's a really simple process. Starts over here by clicking the Create New button. Once you do that, it's going to give you the ability to name your backup, talk about storage options, your archive that it's creating, which is all the files that currently exist on your website, and a file that's called the installer file, which is necessary to restore your backup. Most of the time, you don't really need to mess with these. I've set up a few what's called filters here, just so that it's ignoring some really, 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 really large files that are unnecessary to your backup, but were just some design elements that still exist on your website. But anyway, the only thing you really need to do is rename it every time you run one of these. And I would recommend year, month, day, just so that you can keep track of when it was made. Makes it real easy to find what you're looking for. So today is the 29th of November. So we're going to go ahead and leave that date in there and click Next. Once you click Next, it's actually going to start a scan of your site. And what you're hoping for, which you will rarely get, but what you're hoping for is good all the way through here. We've got a couple notices, which isn't too bad. If something fails, you'll get a big red box here, and that's when you know something's really going to mess up. But this is a few just notices. These are little things that saying, hey, I can't read this file for some reason, and what this file, you can ignore that file. It's not supposed to be able to read that file. It's an encryption thing. And right here, this is actually looking for files that might be too big under size checks. What it's found is actually no large files were found, but it's just saying, hey, your website has quite a few files. It's of a decent size, and just know that backing up a website this large doesn't always work. Now, I will tell you this. I've backed up a lot of websites, and even though this is saying 456 megs, you're going to end up with, I'd say a zip file, probably half this size, which should not be a problem. Now, when you get closer to 1 gigabyte, if that ever happens, then you probably want to go with Duplicator Pro. But until then, no big deal. And if you do start approaching 1 gig, you might think about culling a few things, a few images maybe that you're not using, or videos or something like that. But I would say most often, as long as this isn't at 1 gig, you shouldn't have an issue. And you're going to be able to tell if you do along the way. But everything I would say here looks good. So yes, you're going to continue even though you have notice statuses. And once you click this box, you can click build. Now it's going to take a few minutes to build this package. So it's literally taking every file on your server, making a duplicate of it, compressing it, putting it into a zip file. It's also looking at your SQL database, which is very necessary into running a website. And so it's taking every table from that, every piece of code from that, and it's backing that up as well. So this could take a couple minutes. So we're just going to sit here and wait for it to finish. In the meantime, let me tell you, there are other options that you have when it comes to backing up. There are some plugins that do this automatically for you. There are some plugins that you can do what are called incremental backups. Incremental backups take one big snapshot, which is what we're doing right now, and then every time a file is changed, it backs up the new file. That's actually what I use in managing websites. I can't really give you what I use to do that. It's not designed like that, and it's really only for people like myself who are doing this with dozens and dozens of websites at one time. But there are options out there, and you can feel free to go through and check on some of those. But this one has been the one that I would say has been the most rock solid for me. And now your package is complete. So it took a little over a minute to build this. If it fails, it will tell you right here. If you have an issue, it'll say package failed. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it has been a very long time since I got one, but it'll let you know that, hey, this wasn't successful. You need to maybe exclude some files because the zip file was too big or whatever. But once you see this, you're almost done. All you have to do is download your files. Okay. Highly, 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 highly recommend that you always download this file. Had some clients in the past that have decided to manage their websites, and they would do backups like this without realizing, or I wouldn't say realizing, but I told them, without knowing, without following through in this final step, and that is to download your backup. Right now, your backup still exists on your website. So if your website crash, gets wiped out, or in their case, at a server corruption at the web hosting place they used, they had no way of simply restoring their website quickly. And so make sure that you download this. There's two ways that you can do this. The easiest way is this one-click download here. Once you click it, it's actually it's going to download 2 files for you automatically, or you can just click here and click here to download these 2 files separately. You have to have both of these files in order to do a restoration. So make sure that you have these files. And it's got about 20 seconds left, and then we'll talk through what restoration looks like. Let's see here. I'm going to pull up just a note real quick. Okay, so this is finished downloading. Sorry for all the waiting on this, but that's part of downloading. That's part of backing up your website. Once this is done, you have successfully downloaded a full backup of your website. And again, it's these 2 files. What I would recommend doing is creating a folder with your website, maybe the day, month, or the year, the month, the day on there, and putting both of these files in it and keeping it somewhere very, very safe. That way that you always have it, it's easy to find, and again, you need both of these files in order to restore. Now, restoration. Restoration is a process, and it is not a process that I would recommend for any end user. This is a process that I would recommend for someone who knows what they're doing with websites and web development, because it does require some technical know-how. And so I'm going to kind of quickly give you, just on this notepad, how you would go about it. And if you are needing somebody to do this, I can do a restoration for you. If you get into a jam, it's an hourly thing for me. Typically, it takes me 30 minutes. Any good web dev would know what they're doing with this. Most web designers would know what they're doing with this. And if you run into a person who you ask them to restore their website and you kind of show them this video and they can't get it from my little notes here, then run. Don't use that person because they don't know what they're doing. But what you need to do is if you are ever in a spot where you need to restore this website, number one, you need to clear all files from your hosting. Okay, it's very important. We're going to go ahead and how to restore. This is very important. Okay, real big and bold. Clear all files from your web hosting. You have to have a blank server space for this to happen because you are about to restore every single one of your files. So anything that is on your server needs to be removed. I actually recommend, honestly, if you are on your website, you can create, on your hosting, you can create a directory and drag all the old files into that directory. But for the most part, you want a clean hosting environment. Again, it's going to try to restore every single file. The second thing you need to do is you need to upload that installer.php file via FTP. Upload in the exact same directory, and that's your root directory, to the root directory. I cannot spell. You upload the archive.zip file to the root directory. Cannot spell today. 4, set up a new SQL database. This is wickedly important whenever you go to restore this. It can either A, overwrite an existing database, or B, can start with a blank database. I actually always recommend starting with a blank database. And when you set it up, you're going to need to know where you set it up, the user, and the password. It's all very basic things for any normal web dev to do. Again, this takes me a grand total of 30 minutes or less whenever I do it for a client. So once that is set up, once you have that password, all they have to do is go to your website /installer.php, which will run that. And once they do, it's going to give them the options. All the options should be pretty self-explanatory of overwriting the database or using a new database and all of this kind of stuff. It'll do cleanup afterwards. And once they click restore, you will end up with the website looking exactly like it did on the day that this snapshot was taken. And so literally, if this is done properly, it will be this version. You'll have 17 comments. You'll have 8 plugin updates that need to happen, 1 setting update, whatever these SEO notices. I mean, everything will look exactly like it does right now on Sports Speed Lab. But again, if you run into a situation where you need this to be restored, you can always contact me or another web dev if they'll do it for you. But I highly recommend restoration being done by a pro. It's a good, they shouldn't charge you more than $50. That's kind of my going hourly rate. And they can restore that for you. This is kind of a oh crap, we really screwed up, or oh crap, we got a virus, or oh crap, we've been hacked. This is kind of your stopgap to make sure that everything is okay. Anyway, I will send you this package that we just created for Sports Speed Lab, and I will also create one for Triple Threat Tough, and I'll send both of those to you so that you can download them today. And then obviously you'll have this video, so we'll have more of these to follow. Talk to you later.